In my opinion, I would say that Catalysts are the worst weapon in the game. Having slower attacks and generally lower damage than the other weapons, I would say most Catalyst users are more support than main DPS. While there are surely Catalyst users that are meant to be main DPS, I would say most of the time people would prefer to use a melee character with faster attacks and higher damage. I personally think the combat of melee weapons are much more satisfying than that of a Catalyst character, but after playing Yaimiko's Trial, I think she's the first character that has pretty fun and engaging combat while being a Catalyst user. I don't have any gameplay footage because I don't have her, but her entire kit seems pretty fun to use. Though I'm not pulling for her, I think that a lot of people might start playing Catalyst users because of her release. Now I do have Catalyst users on my team, but like I said earlier, I only really have them there to support the other characters in my party. Not only are some of the best support weapons Catalyst, most of the characters that use those weapons are supports or healers. For example, one of the only Catalyst characters that I use is Sucrose, whose kit is basically entirely support and has Throwing Tales of Dragon Slayers, one of the best support weapons in the game. Also, out of the 9 Catalyst users, 4 of them are supports and I would say 2 of them are sub DPS, but the 3 that are main DPS aren't even really that good. My opinion, don't at me. Now I don't want to say that everyone that mains a Catalyst user are just inferior to the other weapons in the game. I'm just a bit biased because I enjoy playing characters with fast or heavier attacks with high damage, but those main DPS characters that use Catalyst weapons like Yanfei, Ningguang, or Klee just attack kinda slow and don't do as much damage as my other characters. When I'm using a Catalyst weapon, it feels like I'm not really doing anything except for just standing there and going pew pew, as opposed to polearms or swords where you actually move up and get up in their face for melee attacks. Also, I know this has nothing to do with why Catalysts are the worst out of the other weapons, but I would also say that the art for the swords are a lot better as well. Now, I'm not an artist or anything, but I would assume that you can be a lot more creative drawing a sword rather than like a book or something. Now I know this video is about Catalyst users, but I have to talk about the other weapons as well. First is the sword, which seems basic at first, but is actually the most well-rounded weapon of all of them. Swords have medium speed at medium damage and are generally really fun to use. Next up are claymores. Now I really like claymore characters because who doesn't like doing high damage per hit while swinging around a big ass sword? The only downside to claymores are that they have the slowest attacks, but that doesn't make them any less satisfying. Now polearms, in my opinion, have some of the smoothest animations in the game while also being really well-rounded. They have medium to high damage depending on the character you use, but the only bad thing is most of the polearm characters that do high damage are 5 stars and you won't be able to get them until they get re-released. Lastly are bows. Now it's debatable that bow users are the most boring because you also just stand there and shoot your gun, but there are also some bow users that are as fun as melee characters. First off is Child, who I main, but I wouldn't even classify him as a bow user, because his ability basically changes his bow into 2 swords and turns him into a melee character. And saying that you use him in this stance most of the time, I would say he's basically melee. There's also Yoimiya, who is another bow user, but who is a little more different than all the other ones. Her ability supercharges her bow and makes every shot do high damage while keeping her fast attacks. She's one of the more satisfying bow users simply because she rarely charges her bow and needs to aim. Now, Catalyst has every property of all the weapons combined, but it's just worse than all of them at the same time. It's ranged, but not as ranged as bows, it attacks slower than swords, and while being faster than claymores, it doesn't outdamage them. So all in all, I think Catalyst is the worst weapon type in the game, not because it's bad per se, it's just mid-tier, as in it's not better than anything, but also not worse than anything. I guess if you really like the character that's holding the weapon, then play them at your heart's content, but personally, I don't think she's hot enough to make me switch. Thanks for watching the video. I post every Saturday, so make sure you're subbed to hear me rant about other stuff, I guess. If you're not a bottom, if you don't main a Catalyst character, make sure you like the video. It would help me cope for spending this much time and money on the game. Alright, goodbye.